Yeah, I'm Bob Boorstin, 54 years old, embarrassing as it is. I've been involved in mental health issues for about 25 years. I got involved because I had a manic episode and I was hospitalized, and as a result I became quite interested in the issues. The second time I was hospitalized, the insurance company refused to cover my hospitalization, and that led me to not a career, but activity in advocacy for people with mental illness and to help people achieve better mental health. I've been involved with all sorts of organizations around the country and worked once upon a time on the wildly successful Clinton healthcare reform, which involved mental health. So I've been in the mental health community for 25 years working on these issues, all as an amateur.
As the moderator of one of these panels today at the Kennedy Forum, what do you hope is a key takeaway for audience members? Not necessarily employment, but an overall mental health debate and discussion.
Well, I hope that people take away from this that this is a gradual fight, but that it's one that can succeed over time. I've learned in the last quarter century that people who expect immediate results are bound to be disappointed and therefore turn away from advocacy. Advocacy is a hard slog, and I hope that people take away from this that there's a larger community that's there to support them.
And how would you suggest that people become more involved? Are there specific groups or...
I think that people should become more involved on a number of levels. Certainly there are specific advocacy groups, important support groups that are the equivalent of AA for people with mental illness. Not as regimented perhaps, but the same idea. But more importantly, I would hope that people would find people through organizations who share either their viewpoint or their experience, and take that and put it together and find a way to express themselves. Certainly, coming from Google most recently, the internet has given people a place to go and express themselves and to almost commune with others, to find that community that they identify with. And once you find that community, you have a much greater chance of making a difference than you did before. So whether it's by writing, whether it's by speaking out, whether it's by going to group meetings, any one of those things leads you to that community. And I think, I have great admiration for Patrick Kennedy and what he's trying to do in bringing together disparate people. One of the big problems in the mental health movement and the disability movement overall has been a large number of groups competing for a small number of dollars, and people fighting each other rather than seeking the larger goal. And I hope that we're going to see an end to that with the kind of movement that Patrick is supporting and proposing.
And just to kind of recap the panel that you just moderated, is there any key takeaways specifically for those with mental health conditions in the workplace?
Well, I think the key takeaway from our panel is that work is absolutely central to good mental health, and that if you have a job, you have a much better chance of remaining healthy than if you don't. I think that's the key message. In terms of advice for people who are seeking jobs, it's pretty devastating and sad to say, but it's true. I would not urge people to be open about certain illnesses when they're looking for work. The law says you can't discriminate against people with mental illness, for example, but people who interview do. Once you're in a job, then it's up to you to make the decision of whether or not you're going to be public about the illness that you have. Some of us have had it easy, like me. Being open about my mental illness has never been a problem. I've always met with tolerance at work. I can't say that's the same for most people out there. And I would never want to impose my opinion and my behavior pattern on others.
What kind of tips or strategies do you have for those with mental health conditions and being more open if they feel it's appropriate?
Well, you have to reach a decision before you do it that everybody's going to be okay and find out about it. The strategy that I have is to explain to people why you're doing this and to tell them exactly what the advantage is to them. So to your employer, you might be able to say, you know, someday on this job, a year from now, 2 years from now, I may go through a bad period. The fact that you know that and I know that will lead us in a much better place, because you'll know how to get my job done if I have to go out for a couple of weeks. And I won't be trying to prevaricate or in other way, pull the wool over your eyes if this happens to me. So we'll both be more honest. We'll accomplish more as a result of it. To your family members, certainly, you can say things like, I'm telling you now because someday I may be in trouble, and I want you to be there for me. If you're not there for me, then I'm going to be in bigger trouble, and we're all going to have a worse time as a result of it. And to your friends, you can give them the same message. And in fact, people, the one thing I've discovered about having a mental illness is that people want to help. They may not talk about it publicly, they may be embarrassed about it in some way, but if you have a good friend, you find out very quickly if you're sick and you end up in the hospital just how much they want to be there for you. One thing I always say to people is that if they don't show up, if your friends don't show up when you're at your worst, then maybe you ought to think about why they're your friends.